just get such a natural high out because you can just get on it, and you can scream your lungs out, and you get all your frustrations out, and it's just fantastic.
And on a coaster, I'm definitely what I would call a connoisseur of the drop. The steeper and higher the first drop on a coaster, the better on the long run that coaster is.
I guess it's a little bit scary, and that's what a roller coaster is supposed to be for. To probably scare the daylights out of you without you getting hurt or anything.
Roller coasters became common in the United States around the early part of this century. The timber-supported, rickety-looking railways of exaggerated drops and curves dared and scared their way to widespread acceptance. Popularity grew to such an extent in the 1920s that this period became known as the Golden Age of roller coasters. Some of the best-loved rides with the meanest reputations came from this time. Today, experts agree that we are in a second golden age of roller coasters. A resurgence of interest in the 1970s has caused amusement parks to spend millions in search of the ultimate ride. Current technology has transformed the coaster into a space-age dimension of crazed corkscrew configurations and loops. Well-known traditional and modern coasters still have a reputation of looking and feeling dangerous, but they are actually very safe.
We have a daily ride inspection program throughout the season, from the maintenance aspect, from the safety department standpoint, and from the operational division. So we've got actually 3 different divisions in the park, each schooled in safety inspection that are done daily on each ride.
We have a 24-hour maintenance crew that on our evening crew we must have upwards to a dozen maintenance people who periodically check and everyday routine maintenance on the cars, and we have people walking the ride, visually checking the structure every day.
People like to be carried to the point, it's like walking up to the edge of a cliff, you know. You'll go 10 feet to the edge without a safety belt. But if you've got that safety belt, you'll walk right up to the edge to experience the full effect of an environmental situation that is not normal, that you don't experience every day. And I think the coaster takes those people to that point, okay? And in turn, they're trusting us to provide that, one, it's going to be a tremendous thrill ride, but in turn, it's also going to be a safe ride.
I don't know what the reasons would be for why there seems to be a resurgence of interest into roller coasters. We know that it did exist around the 20s and the 30s. There was a race on almost to build the ultimate coaster, and they were being built all over the place. That kind of faded away through the 40s and the 50s, and suddenly in the early 70s we're faced with it again. People are interested in trying to experience, and obviously designers are trying to build the ultimate experience in a safe but thrilling ride.
Well, it's not as fatty as some people think, because these are basically people coming out of the woodwork, in that there have always been roller coaster lovers, and now they just realize, hey, there's not as few of us as we thought, and we're not as weird as we thought, or if we're weird, we're all in together. But no, it's not the general public. It's not. You can't put. It's not the same as Jaws or Possession or Farrah Fawcett Majors. No, it's been there all the time, and I think they're just showing themselves a little more.
A lot of people have written me saying, I thought I was the only one. Now I know I'm not a total freak. And I think people just came out and said, I love roller coasters, and they were hiding it before.
Well, I'm a roller coaster buff. I travel all over the country riding roller coasters. And I spent 11 years working at the Riverview Park in Chicago. And over the 11 years, I worked on everything they had out there, including their 6 roller coasters.
I'm on a tour as it is right now, a 9-day tour. I'm going to cover about 19 different parks and ride about 32 different coasters.
I'd rather be here than in a nightclub, if that's what you're inferring. I think this is a fantastic way to have fun.
This is something that we can be very proud of. You don't see Europeans doing the same type of things we do. When they do build a roller coaster, they build what I would call a scenic railway, you know, 4-foot dips, and to them this is a big deal. I think that roller coasters and amusement parks, like hot dogs and baseball, is something that's very American, and I think we should be very proud of.
Coaster enthusiasts express a mixture of feelings between traditional wooden and modern steel coasters.
By all means, I prefer a wooden roller coaster, conventional type roller coaster, or any other type. I like the steel roller coasters, but I'm more in the conventional type of appeal there. I like the way the wooden coasters act compared to the steel ones. They seem to give more of a thrill.
I think steel coasters are fine, but I'm mainly more wooden myself. I'm going to go for the wooden coasters. I'm not a steel person.
Steel coasters, just like being on a commuter train. There's really not much to it, but on a wooden coaster, you bounce around more.
I like metal coasters because they're smoother, you know. But the wooden coasters are nice too because they're I don't know, they're fun too because you get you know, pushed around and, you know, they're both all right.
Well, I don't think you can compare them. It's a different machine. You know, it's the same as a car. If you have a car that rides very smooth, you're going 60, and it feels like you're going slower, you know. But if you have a beat-up old car that's, you know, runs pretty rough and all, you know, and you're going 60, you're going to hold on, you know, you don't know, you know, and that's what it is. That's the whole difference between the steel and the metal tube track, you know. The smoothness of the ride makes it feel faster and stuff.
There are certain factors and personal feelings that go into determining the worthiness of a roller coaster.
Design and overall effect, I'd say, constitutes the personality of a roller coaster. Smoothness, the way the turns are styled, and the drops. It's quite a few variables, I'd say.
The criteria would be a total ride. It's great if it has a first hill, but if it doesn't do much after that, it's not a very good roller coaster. So it has to have a good first hill, combination of curves, perhaps tunnels, thrills, surprises, and it has to be a total ride.
The
Thunderbolt at Kennywood Park is unbeatable. It's a beautiful roller coaster. It's full of surprises. It has good turns, nice dips. It's just a grand old-fashioned roller coaster, and they don't build them like that anymore.
I have to say the Jumbo Jet. I love the Jumbo Jet. It's not really one of the most exciting coasters. I guess I like going around in loops, and that's what the Jumbo Jet does the most at, a pretty high rate of speed. And that I like.
Well, it was a Bob's coaster in Riverview Park, Chicago. It had all airplane curves on it. And whenever it came off the big hill, it dived down. And whenever it made a turn, it didn't slow down at all, like your conventional coasters. Back in the 1920s, they came up with bang curves for Bob's type of coasters, which they built all over the country. And today, I think there's only about one or two of them left. My current favorite would be probably the Texas Cyclone. It's a Bob's type of coaster with all bang curves.
The Comet at Crystal Beach in Ontario. It's it's very fast, and it's got a really steep first hill, and it's nice. I like the proximity of it to the water. It sort of adds a different dimension to the ride.
This Screaming Eagle. It's like being strapped on the back of a wild horse. Can't get off. Just keep getting kicked around.
Roller coaster expert Robert Cartmel has established a list of the top 10 wooden coasters of the world.
Well, I'll start with number 10, which is a coaster at Dorney Park. It's a very small coaster, and it's one of my toys. Not everyone agrees with this one, but it has a great first drop, and it's a very cheerful roller coaster. Next on the list is the Mexico City Racer, which is a complete contrast to the Dorney coaster. It's a brutal, forbidding type of ride. Number 8 is the Santa Cruz coaster, which is not a big ride, but it's has a lot of thrills in it. And as I said earlier, it's beautiful architecture. Number 7 is Paragon Park, which was recently burned, and they've rebuilt it, but it's not quite the same ride. It would have been rated higher before the fire. Number 6 is the Great American Scream Machine, which is a beautiful roller coaster, and probably the best title of any ride that I can think of. Number 5 is the Comet at Crystal Beach, which is a series of very high hills. Some people rate it as the number 1 in the world. The famous Cyclone at Coney Island. A number of people rate that as the best in the world. 3 is the Mr. Twister, which lives up to its name. It's a series of spiral curves, high hills, and that's in Denver. Number 2 is the Kennywood Thunderbolt, whose final hills are 80 and 90 feet. That's in Pittsburgh. And the number 1 coaster is the Texas Cyclone at Astroworld in Houston. And I think it's the best ride, with the exception of the Bob's at Riverview, which was torn down in 1967. It's the best ride that's ever been built.
The ultimate coaster enthusiast is the coaster maniac.
Well, I presume a coaster maniac is meant as a facetious term for an a fanatic or extreme fan of roller coasters. I presume that there are different kinds of coaster maniacs. From what I can gather, there are engineering coaster maniacs who really think they're structurally kind of interesting and really don't really want to ride them, but they like looking at them and figuring out how they work and so on. There are probably some aesthetically oriented architectural coaster maniacs, though I think they're slim. But mainly they're people who just like to ride them. And of course there are extremes of those. There are specializations like marathoners who like to apparently ride them endlessly. And that's, I think, real mania when you get into that group.
Richard Rodriguez recently established a new Guinness World Record of 128 consecutive riding hours on a roller coaster. The event happened between January 31st and February 5th of this year on the Florida Hurricane at Circus World in Orlando, Florida. Coaster enthusiast John Carruthers relates his unique method of riding an unfamiliar roller coaster.
Well, when I ride a new roller coaster for the first time, I like to get the maximum sensation. And I think part of the sensation of any ride is the element of surprise and the element of suspense. And when I approach a new roller coaster in an amusement park that I've never visited, I purposely try to avoid looking at the roller coaster, because if you look at it too much, you soon see what the track pattern is. And when I approach the coaster train and the station, I board the train, and then as soon as I sit down, I close my eyes tightly, not even just shut, but tightly so that there's complete darkness as much as possible. And then that's when the suspense really starts. The movement of the slow movement of the car as it rounds the curve and then up the chain. And then when you're going up the chain, you don't really, if you haven't looked at the coaster, you don't really realize how much further you have to go before you come to the drop-off. And then it begins to perhaps slow down. And then when you realize that the car is slightly beginning to tilt, that's when you know it's going to make that first drop. And that's where the real element of surprise comes, because you don't know how far it's going to drop, whether it's going to turn to the right or to the left, or whether it's going to go flying up a second hill and then into a 180-degree or a 90-degree turn or whatever. And then the rest of the ride is continued surprise. Drops, dips, curves, out and back, or however the coaster is designed. Even an out and back coaster has great element of surprise if you ride it this way. But if it's a spaghetti bowl type coaster where the track twists over, under, up, and around itself, that's where it's really element of surprise.
enjoy only the ride. There are other aspects to roller coasters, such as model building.
It's designed essentially from a number of coasters. It's an idea that I had in my head. As what it is my conception of what would happen if one of the modern coaster designers today, such as John Allen or Bill Cobb, would do if a park came to them and said, build us a coaster. We don't have much room. We don't have the acres for you to build a big, flat-out racer, out-and-back type racer. We need a very compact coaster, something similar to the twisting type coasters of yesterday. And this would be my conception of what such a coaster built today to the standards of yesterday would look like. Well, John Allen's hallmark has always been the parabolic shape of the curved shape of the dips. Example being this front dip right here. It's all curved. It's a very gentle curve all the way around. There's no sudden points on the ride that throw you out of your seat or anything like that. And that's just what this ride would do. It would not throw you out of your seat. It's just something I've been thinking about for a number of years. It's kind of a challenge to see whether or not it could be done and work. I've heard of a lot of models being built, and virtually none of them work. And I just thought I'd try it and see if I could get it to work. I would build, like the first hill I built, all in one piece and put the track on it, and that worked fine, no problem. And like the return for the turn, I built it about halfway up, and then I held the track loose and just adjusted the height to where the car would just make it. And then I built the structure at that, that exact height, and I just worked that all the way around. Just done for pleasure. I'll take it if somebody asks me, to bring it someplace. If I can do it, if it's within my ability to do it, I'll bring it. I'll bring it to future conventions of the American Coaster Enthusiast. It'll be at every convention for quite a while to come.
Roller coasters make fine subjects for photography.
This one was taken at Westview Park, just north of Pittsburgh. It's not running anymore. I hear they're going to tear it down. This one is the Wildcat at the Dora Park in Youngstown, still running. It's probably my favorite. I mainly go first to the first hill and try to get a good shot. Well, since I've done this picture, I've been trying to get, the shot up the first hill. I'd like to get a picture like this with the car on the track. Would be like photographing through the track as it's coming down.
Richard Munch is president of the American Coaster Enthusiasts. The club provides a variety of services. A cause of the organization is the preservation of well-known coaster rides.
One of the easiest ways to do it is to have landmark status applied for and possibly designated to an individual coaster. One of the coasters that I am working on right now with several politicians is the Coney Island Cyclone. But the Coney Island Cyclone's problem is that there are many people who don't want the ride there. For landmark status, a coaster's got to be very good, and it's got to be very well renowned, either in the area or through the nation or worldwide. In this particular instance, the Cyclone is worldwide, world known. It's just known all over the world. When people mention the Cyclone, most of the time they'll know what you're talking about, even though they haven't ridden or haven't seen it. There are other coasters worth saving and preserving. There are other ways of preserving it, of course, through if you have the financial backing. But right now, it's basically through the city judicial systems and stuff like that that you can save these rides.
Last year, Cedar Point Amusement Park boasted the highest, steepest, and fastest roller coaster in the world. Chris and Gemini, the twin racer features a vertical drop of 118 feet on the first hill at a very steep 55 degrees. The coaster's top speed is 60+ miles per hour. This past spring, Kings Island opened what they claimed to be America's champion roller coaster, the Beast. The Beast features a top speed of 70 miles per hour, a total track length of 1.5 miles, and vertical drops of 135 and 141 feet. Where do we go from here? Robert Cartmel has some thoughts about the ultimate roller coaster.
The first thing I do is break the 200-foot barrier. Every year they seem to be going up 5 feet. I'm getting impatient. So break the 200-foot barrier, even if it's up there in the clouds. A lot of designers are scared that they'll see a 200-foot coaster and say, I'm not going to ride that thing. I mean, the customers. It'll scare them away, but I don't think so. It seems to pull them in. I wouldn't put any loops on it. I would probably build it like some of the coasters in the 1920s. A good example of that is Harry Traber's Cyclone, which is listed as the most fearsome coaster ever built. I would build it along that line. I think that would be my ultimate roller coaster. 200 feet, built like Harry Traber's Cyclone.
We leave you with a ride on some of the best-known coasters in America. May the force of gravity be with you.